Welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where wealth means a lot more than just building a second stream of income. Listen and learn how 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate to create a lifestyle that most people only dream about. A lifestyle that includes good health, family, romance, travel, charity, and all the other parts of a balanced life. Now, here is your host, real estate investor and mentor, Steve Davis.
Good afternoon and welcome to the show, where, as always, we're talking about the fact that people are suffering financially due to the fact that we're just not teaching financial principles in high school and college. It's just not happening. And families are passing on poor beliefs, middle-class beliefs. With poor and middle-class beliefs, guess what results you're going to get from your life? Poor and middle class. And people get upset. They're like, the rich keep getting richer, the poor keep getting poor. Guess what? I just explained why. Because, and I'm going to blame this on socialists, because I have no idea why a capitalist would not want money taught in school. So it had to have been the socialists that prevent it from being taught in schools. Of course the poor are going to get poorer. They keep passing on poor ideas, while the rich keep passing on get rich ideas. It's really that simple. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. You know, part of our mission statement at Real Wealth Academy is our goal is to stop the suffering for families who are still living paycheck to paycheck, or just barely getting by, and they're worried about their retirement, they're worried about being a burden on their children. That is part of our mission statement. That's why we do it. And we need this stuff taught in high school and college. It has to start in high school because obviously not everybody goes to college. But if it's not going to be taught there, we're going to teach it. And people can come to us. We have an excellent children's program. It's actually taught by my son, who graduated college with $4,000 a month passive income. It's something that has to be done sooner or later within our school system. Or, as people complain, the poor will continue to get poorer and the rich will continue to get richer. These numbers, these ideas, these concepts need to be taught in high school. And it doesn't even take that long. It could be literally 1 hour, one class from 9th grade through 12th. So I guess that's 4 classes total, just on money and wealth. It'd be an easy curriculum to write. You could start off, are you ready for this? Teach them how to balance a checkbook. When I graduated high school, I didn't know how to do that. Teach them how to live on a budget. Teach them how to invest versus speculate. Teach them that they're supposed to have passive income. They're supposed to have 2 streams of income. You know, people are always complimenting me on my son, who is brilliant, but he didn't graduate with $4,000 a month passive income because he's brilliant. It's because he had been told from the time he was 5 years old that that was what he was supposed to do. And if you had been told that from the time you were 5 years old, you know what you'd have right now? Passive income. Because think about it. You're really successful at every single thing that you do. Now, this one people will beat themselves up when I say that live or on the air. And please don't. Do not do what I think a lot of you just did. You went, what do you mean I'm successful? I'm not in the shape I want to be in. I don't have the relationships I want. I don't have the money I want. I'm not in the job I want. I'm not successful. Bull. You are successful. But is it not possible that you were told to go be successful at ineffective things? It's possible, isn't it? Not only possible, it's likely, because it's not taught. You're guessing. You're trying to figure it out by trial and error. Trial and error takes decades. It took man hundreds of thousands of years to figure certain things out. And you expect you're going to figure all this out in one lifetime? Not likely. So you are successful, and if you were to consult with me, I can take in 30 minutes and analyze your life and show you that you're successful at multiple things. And that if you had been told from the time you were 5 years old that the house was not important, the car was not important, the clothes were not important, the living in the right neighborhood was a bunch of bull crap, you know what you'd have? Passive income. And then you'd be able to afford any neighborhood you want, any car you want, any house you want. But it's all whacked because everybody's doing it backwards. They're going and buying the toys first. They're going to buy the house, that's the other one that drives me crazy. For some reason, and this has been out there for 30, 40 years, Robert Kiyosaki brought it up again probably 20 years ago in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But I remember Colonel A.I. Thomas, who was my very first mentor, bringing up the point that he lived in a humble home, and he was very wealthy, and he goes, because it's just a stinking liability. He didn't explain that, but it was shocked me, because what have we all been told? Your home is your biggest asset, when in reality it's actually your biggest liability. Then Robert Kiyosaki, 20 years later, or 10 years later I guess, brought up the point, or that this is the first place I read it, that assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take money out of your pocket. So what is your home? It's a liability. It takes money out of your pocket. You say, well, my home's paid in full. You still have taxes. You still have insurance. There's no such thing as a paid in full home, because you still have taxes, insurance, maintenance. It is an expense. It's a liability. And that's another thing that needs to be taught in high school. Can you imagine if you were taught that? Assets put money in your pocket every month. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. Suddenly we'd realize these cars, these houses, jewelry, clothes, they're toys. They're symbols of success, not success. And we wouldn't buy those first. The only thing that separates the last 27 years of my life compared to the first 27 years was the first 27 years I bought the toys first, expecting to get rich later. The last 27 I focused on getting rich and then buying the toys. Just switch the order. We'll talk more in a moment. This is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle? You can and should have some real estate in your portfolio. This is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Starting with bad credit and no money at age 27, I began investing in real estate. By 30, I was retired. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. I do need to make an announcement before we proceed through these thoughts, and that is that the 2-day class, thanks to the virus, will be rescheduled. We're pushing it off 4 weeks to the end of April. So if you're scheduled for that, I truly apologize. It will be the end of April. But what we're going to do is we're going to send out an email that will include the reading list, a copy of The Richest Man in Babylon, and a copy of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So you got something to keep you busy between now and then. If you can get all those books read between now and then, I promise you this, you'll get twice as much out of that 2-day class as without them. So it's not required that you read all the books, but if you can, do so. So again, the 2-day class for March has been rescheduled to April. I do not know the dates. I wasn't expecting to announce this on the radio, but we're going to email everybody this afternoon, and we'll email those books to you as well. Again, our apologies. Okay, so we were talking about, and I was complaining, that nobody's teaching. The poor get poor, the middle class stays middle class because of the belief systems that they have. And I think the only way to be fair is to get this material taught in the high schools. And I volunteered to do it and did it quite a few times, probably 6 or 7 times, but there's just such a resistance in that arena. I don't even know how to describe it. I thought they'd be excited that I was there. I felt like I was an inconvenience for them. Very odd. But anyway, that's part of our mission, is to make this information available to the average person. We'll probably start our children's program again, going to the schools and teaching it for free if they'll have us. It's really odd. Okay, the next thing I want to go over is last Friday I promised you that we would talk Monday, today, about a question on property management. And unfortunately, I was unable to get a hold of the individual that emailed the question. I haven't heard back from her yet. So the only thing I want to say about it is there is a train of thought out there that because you can make a few more dollars by managing it yourself, that you should always manage it yourself. Because you're going to care more than a third party will about your wealth and your money, you should definitely do it yourself. And there's some merit to that. It's definitely not a dumb idea or anything like that, but you should have some flexibility. And the reason I say this is because a very successful single family investor, probably had 30 or 40 houses, is a close friend of mine. And he has never run his own properties from day one. In fact, when he got his original properties, he had zero cash flow from them because he had a management company. All the profit was going to the management company, and he didn't care. But as his portfolio grew, it just took him a little longer to do it, if that makes sense. If he had run them himself, he could have achieved his financial goal in a shorter period. But the nice thing about this individual is he loves his job. He's an engineer. He loves his job. And so he didn't want to back off of working 50, 60 hours a week. I know there's some health issues with doing that, but that's his joy. So for me, I've learned over the last few years that there is sometimes that it is correct sometimes that you should use a management company instead of running them on your own. I still say that the majority of the time, and for the majority of the people, you should run them yourself. It builds confidence. You learn things that you could never learn from a radio show or even a 2-day class. It's just amazing. And it changes you because it's just a neat feeling when you've got even just 5 or 6 rent houses and you run them successfully for a year and you do your little tax return and you see your profit. And you're like, wow, I am a doggone business person. Darn right you are. You're actually a business person with one house. But it's really neat, and it changes who you think you are. It makes you feel better about yourself, builds confidence, and so on. So if she emails me back today, which I'm going to assume she is, it was just the weekend, so she didn't email me back. We'll discuss this some more tomorrow and find out what her situation is, and I'll tell you what I ended up advising her. So the next thing that I promised you on social media was we talk about why. We did this about a month and a half ago, and yesterday I was adding some material to the 2-day class about why. In other words, one of the things that I use to motivate and encourage my members is I find out what their why is. And what I mean by that is, why do you want to own real estate? Why do you want $10,000 a month passive income? Why? And you may say, ooh, $10,000 a month, everybody wants that. No, they don't. I used to think that too. I used to think that everybody wanted to be a millionaire, but they don't. I used to think everybody wanted to be in shape, but they don't. I used to think everybody wanted to make love all the time. They don't. I used to think, what was the other one that just blew me away? Oh, have a long-term relationship. They don't. They don't. It's only a certain group of people that those things are important to. And those are really the people that, as a rule, I'm talking to, or that what I say resonates with. It's people who want more out of life, more of the good things. Let me be very careful. More of the right things out of life. And what it comes down to, you have to go all the way back to Viktor Frankl in World War II. Viktor Frankl wrote the book. This is a tough book to read, by the way. You'll cry probably 10 different times. The book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And what it is a book about his experiences in the Nazi death camps. Auschwitz, Dachau, I'm not sure which one he was in. But he was surviving when he was a petite, not really a big bodybuilder type guy, and these big, strong guys were dying, yet he was surviving. So he began to look around, and he found that physical condition was only a small part of why people were surviving this horrific treatment. And over time, he began to realize that it was his choices for his response to what was going on that made the difference. I told this story last week or week before last. He was on a surgery table and they were performing experiments on him, I'm sure without painkiller, and he was in massive pain, and he suddenly realized that when everything else is taken away from you, you only have one thing left, and that is your ability to decide how you're going to respond to what's going on around you. And he talks about going into the gap between thought and response. See, most people don't. They go directly to reaction. There's no gap. As soon as somebody says something they don't like, they have a recorded response. That's called a reaction, and they immediately make that reaction. Where he was talking about that he was making a choice that while he was going through this massive pain, something that was killing people all around him, he was surviving. And the reason was he had a big enough why. His why was that he would envision himself, while he was being tortured, in a classroom teaching kids to never let this happen again. He envisioned stopping this type of, I don't even know what you would call that, genocide. Well, they weren't just genocide. They were literally, yeah, that is genocide. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, that is, when they're trying to get rid of the entire race, that's genocide. So he was like, how do we stop this? If I die, then my message won't get out there. So he had a why, a reason to survive. And he brings up the point that if you have a big enough why, you can handle any how. In other words, how to survive. I prefer it. I'm not discounting that he said it right. It's just I made a mistake. And I thought he said, if you got a big enough why, you can handle any what. And for me, what that meant was what's going on in your life. If my why is to be financially free so that I can spend more time with my children, then I can handle whatever it takes. That's why what worked for me. Okay, we'll talk more about this and start talking about your why when we come back from the break here on the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You can call me, 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. "70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle." Listen to the GetRealWealth.com radio show to find out how you can do it too. Saturdays at 10 a.m. right here on AM 950 KPRC. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Remember, if you do have a question, don't worry about what I'm talking about. You can call in and ask me anything. It's 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738, or you can email me. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com, asksteve@getrealwealth.com. So here's what's going on Simon Sinek's side. I've already shared with you the book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. There's another book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. S-I-N-E-K. In it, he's primarily talking about businesses. But if you read between the lines, you'll see that it applies to everyone's personal life as well. Meaning, if it's important to a person to do business with a company where they agree with their why and they're motivated to do business with that company, would it not make sense that they'd be motivated to help themselves more if they knew their why? To me, that makes perfect sense. Let's go to the phone lines now. We're going to go to Galveston and talk to Donna. Donna, thanks a lot for calling in. How are you today?
Oh, hey, Steve. We're doing great out here in Galveston.
Good deal. What's going on?
Well, I had a question because I have a brother that bought a condo in San Diego like 15 years ago for like a quarter of, $225, $250. And now he's going to sell it and wants to buy a couple of other investment properties in a much cheaper state. But
Okay.
I was telling him I was really happy for him that now he'll have a little cash in his pocket besides being able to reinvest. And he said he won't get any cash out of it because it has to be a 1031 exchange. It's not a primary residence. So
That's not accurate. Let's say that do you know what he's going to sell it for so we know numbers?
it's probably going to be like around 1.3.
Good Lord. Okay, he's going to have over $1 million. He can keep 200 of it and pay the taxes on it and 1031 the other 800. So he's got some misinformation there.
Okay.
Who he should talk to is, why don't you email me and I'll send you
Okay.
my 31 specialist. She works across the country.
Okay. That would be great. Because, I told him that can't be right. And he said, no, I can't keep even $1. I got to turn it all in.
Yeah, that's not accurate. You can do a partial 1031, no problem.
Okay. That was it. Thanks. And by the way, I really like Simon Sinek. So
Yeah,
I appreciate
he's
you mentioning
amazing.
that. Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Donna. Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah, Simon Sinek, the book is very small, too. Both of these books, Man's Search for Meaning, but Man's Search for Meaning is gut-wrenching. It's a tearjerker. But it's the type of tears that are inspirational. It's not like, there's some sad parts to it, because, of course, it was the death camps. But there's more inspirational stuff that's going to bring a tear to your eye. And then Simon Sinek's book is also an easy, quick read. See, this is what I mean. Here's his main point from the book. If you're a company, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. Have you ever noticed when I talk about Real Wealth Academy, I talk as much about why we do it, that people are suffering, as I do what we do, which is teach people how to end the suffering. If I were to just come on and say, I'm going to teach you to get rich, I would not get anywhere near the response that I do by making sure that people understand why we do it. And once you learn that the why is the big motivator for everyone, if you think about, hey, why do I want, go back to my question earlier, why do I want $10,000 a month? To have some dirty paper, a little extra dirty paper? No. It's what the $10,000 a month means to you, or the why. I want more time with my kids. I want to rekindle my romantic relationship with my spouse. I want more time for fitness. I want more time for charity. I want to give some of that $10,000 to charity. Those are the real motivators. Money is not a motivator. People miss that point. So that's why I will probably touch on the why, this why show, at least once a month, trying to get you to think about why is it that you want this passive income. And one of these days, for every one of you, there'll be an epiphany when it suddenly dawns on you. My epiphany came after they cut my pay by 20 grand a year. Some of us are we need a 2x4 to the forehead to wake up. Well, I got my 2x4 and I woke up. Others of you are smarter than me and you're just going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And I hope that makes sense. And I'm not putting myself down, it's just there's two different types of people. People that need a baseball bat to the forehead like me, and then there's another group of people that are highly intelligent that see that the baseball bat's coming and they go ahead and duck by getting the passive income in advance. I hope that makes sense. I didn't duck. I took the full hit. It still stings a little. So those two books, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning and Simon Sinek's Start with Why, if you can knock those two books out, I guarantee when you do a goals, the next time you sit down and write down your goals, they'll be different because you'll know why you have that goal. You'll know why. And that is a bigger motivator than the money will ever be. And be cautious. If you are motivated by money, watch out. That may be a sign that you need to work on your character, because money does nothing to make your life better. if it's not used properly. You need those whys. Why do I want that money? In alignment with, as corny as this sounds, the universe. And that's not spiritual, it's not mystical, it's just flat out, there are certain principles, such as love, peace, integrity, helping others. Think about John Wooden's comment. A life not in the service of others is not a life worth living. Because this is one thing that I've seen. I used to joke about this, and I've won a couple bets at bars where I could pick somebody out that was a trust fund baby at the bar. I go, that's a trust fund baby. And they go, how in the heck do you know that? I go, I can just tell you. You can look at them. They're lost. They look like a deer in headlights. They're forcing a smile. And I was right a couple of times and won some money. I've been right many times without winning money. I can pick out a trust fund baby, someone who's been given a lot of money. It ruins their freaking life in almost all cases. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to use it to help and serve others. So it becomes, then they start feeling guilty about it. It's like these billionaires that run around going, oh, if you're going to get rich, you got to work 80 hours a week. You know why they say that? Because they feel guilty for being billionaires. And they want you to think they're working 80 hours a week. They're not. Plus, I'll take any billionaire on the planet, and whatever they're doing in 80 hours a week, I'll do it in 40. That sounds arrogant, doesn't it? But I did it 2 times. I did it 2 times where I was at a company where people were working 60, 70 hours a week. I said, put me on a 40-hour work week and I'll beat all of your other employees. And I did. And you know what my reward was? They put me back to 60, 70 hours a week. Even though for 9 weeks straight, I beat, except for 1 week, 9 weeks straight, I was the #1 salesperson, working 40 hours a week while everybody else was working 60, 70, 80. And my reward was they put me back. Corporate America. Love it. So, okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738, or you're welcome to email me. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com, asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Okay, here's another question that I'm going to tell you, that I'm going to offer you something, and that is, Steve Rosenberg was on the show about 2 weeks ago. He is a property management specialist. He had his own company where he managed about 1,000 houses. Now he's with an even bigger company. He sold his company and has taken an advisory role in an even bigger company that's nationwide called Mind.co, which is their website as well, Mind.co, C-O, not com, C-O, Mind, M-Y-N-D. .co. He's got, here's the property management question. How do I interview property management companies? Well, guess what? I have a list of 20 questions that you should ask them. If you want that list, email me. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Just put property management in the subject line. Property management in the subject line, and email me. You're listening to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You're listening to AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65 and 36% are dead? The good news is that here at the GetRealWealth.com radio show, we know what the other 5% are doing. 70% of them own real estate. We are a mentoring group for new and experienced real estate investors. We will show you how to build a second stream of income that will allow you to retire at any age. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, please go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Phone lines are open for just one more segment, so if you've got a question for me, give me a call at 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, or email your question to me, and if I don't get to it while I'm on the air, I will email you right after the show, or soon. Depends on how many emails I get. Within an hour or so, usually. It's AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com, AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com. So let's go back to some other email questions. This one's from a Keith. Listen to these terms. Now this is important because Keith has said this is his first purchase and he just wants to do a cash out refinance, and they completely skipped Fannie Mae loans on this guy. So Keith, these terms, 70% loan to value, low. 5-year term, unacceptable. 25-year amortization, unacceptable. The 1%, 1 point for the loan, that's about right. But what they've skipped is you're allowed to have 10 Fannie Mae loans before you have to move to this type of loan. So neither of these are good. Either this banker is malicious and wants to put you in an expensive loan like this, or he's ignorant and doesn't know about Fannie Mae loans. Either way, Keith, you got to get away from this guy. You need a better banker. And if you'll email me, I'll send you to one of mine. It's AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com. AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com. Just put, I need a new mortgage company, or I need a new bank in the subject line, and I'll send you a couple that I use, Keith, that will get you on track with these Fannie Mae loans, because they are 30-year fixed rate, no ARM. That 5-year term means it's an ARM. They're going to adjust the interest rate every 5 years. You don't want that. You want 30-year fixed, and you're allowed 10 of those, 1 for your personal residence and 9 rent properties, Keith. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. This next question is something that we discussed a couple days ago, but I guess I better address it again. Let me make sure this isn't the exact same one by accident. No, it's not. This is from a Jesse, and it's about washer and dryer. Do they make a difference? The way I answered this the other day, I'm going to answer it very quickly the same way. It depends on the part of the country you're in. There are parts of the country where it does make sense a little bit, but I still probably wouldn't do it. It's just something else to break, something else to go wrong. I even bought a house with a washer and dryer. It came with a washer and dryer, and the first tenant that moved in, I said, that washer and dryer is yours. You can have it. I don't want it. Don't call me with maintenance on it. It's yours. They gladly accepted. Now, they sold it and bought a very fancy washer and dryer. I don't care. I don't want to take care of a washer, dryer, or a refrigerator in any of my single-family houses. The only appliances are dishwasher, stove, and, of course, hot water heater and HVAC. So I don't think, Jesse, that a washer and dryer is a good idea in this part of the country. I don't think it makes a big difference on your rent, at least not enough to warrant the hassle and the expenses associated with those things. So is it okay to do washer and dryer? Yeah, but I really don't recommend it. I really don't. I don't think it's a great deal at all. Okay. All right. Prospective tenant going through separation, divorce, from Victoria. I've got a prospective tenant who showed up to view a home with her husband. He never got out of the car, and when specifically asked, said within my hearing that he doesn't care about looking at the unit. She submitted her application and passed all of our qualifications, income, rental history, etc. When I reminded her that everyone over 18 needs to submit a separate application, she informed me that it would just be her and her 2 children. She and her husband were in the process of separating. Should I lease to this person? This is a tough one, but I probably would. If she's got all the qualifications and you've qualified her by herself, she has the income, she has the good credit, she has the good rental history, I would absolutely lease to her. So, yeah, the more I think about this, there's no question in my mind, because if she had shown up without that guy, I would have leased to her. So why would I not, just because her ex-husband's in the car? Sorry, that took me a moment to think about, but yeah, I would definitely, Victoria, if she qualifies on every other level, I would do it. Just remember that new strategy. Make sure you collect a security deposit that's $200 to $300 more than the rent, so that they don't confuse it with the last month's payment. Okay, new experience with prospective tenant. Another email about tenant qualifications from another Steve in Dallas. He says, I have a lease coming up and have been marketing hard. I find a single mom of 1 that loves the place and submits an application. The check, wow, same situation. All checks out good. I tell her I need the deposit. She says, great. Days go by, no deposit. Nope, this is not good. I text her and ask her about the deposit. Still no response. I don't even need to read further. Move on. Move on. Because if she had the money, she'd give it to you. And if she has the money and doesn't give it to you, either way, she's a problem. Either way, she's a problem. So I would go ahead and move past this person, because they've been dishonest with you. They're not even keeping their promises. To the very first few promises they made to you, they're not going to keep their promises once they move in either, Steve. So let this person go, in my opinion. It's a very strong opinion too. I'm warning you. Mark my words. If you take this lady, she's going to break her promise when she's in the lease, and you'll be emailing me going, Steve, you were right. So I don't want that email. I want you to do the right thing and do not lease to that person. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. This one's titled Finding an Honest Tenant, from Samantha. I keep getting fake pay stubs and references. I can't seem to find an honest tenant. What should I do? This is a very short email, Samantha, and it doesn't really give me enough information. I would want to know how you're marketing the property and how you're communicating with them, because I can honestly say in 30 years I've never had that happen once. So my first fear is that you bought in a really low income neighborhood. You're asking for it if you do that. If you go below that $120,000, $100,000 mark, those low income neighborhoods can be rough. You have to know the right, which is the $150,000 to $220,000 homes. That's where you should be. The next thing is, how are you advertising? Is it just the web? Did you just have an ad on Craigslist? You can attract some nuts off of Craigslist. And I can't stress this enough, Samantha. 30 years, hundreds of units. I've never had a fake pay stub. I've never had fake references. So there's something wrong. And I'm going to say something harsh, Samantha, and that is this. It comes down to the old rule that you only attract people as crazy as you are. If you date crazy guys, more than one in a row, guess what? You're crazy too. You're attracting them. You date 3 in a row, you're whacked. And you need to realize that. I had a guy that, oh man, every girl he dated was crazy. This was 5, 6, 7 women. Dude, it's you, not them. It's you that's crazy. So, Samantha, you may need to modify the way you're communicating with these people. You may need to think twice about what you're saying to them. My bet is you have not taken a class on sales. You haven't taken a class on property management. And those are two things you need to knock out very quickly, or this thing's going to remain vacant, and you're going to keep getting people that are willing to lie to you. So be cautious of that, Samantha. And don't get discouraged. Everybody starts off, I call it crazy. Let's use a different word, incompetent, because they don't know what they're doing, Samantha. And it just appears to me, based off this email, that you haven't taken any courses. So you don't know what you're doing. You're trial and erroring it, trying to figure it out as you go. Maybe you're a little cheap, don't want to pay $500 or $1,000 for a class. Do it. Okay, now we got a first-time landlord, Kyle. Oh, we're at the end of the show. Okay, I really appreciate you all listening. Remember, if you want this list of questions to ask a property manager, just email me, property manager in the subject line. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
This has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Please remember that this show is for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investing advice. Always get a professional opinion before making any investment decision. To find out about the mentoring and consulting at Real Wealth Academy, visit GetRealWealth.com and attend one of our free introductory workshops on real estate investing. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.